Good afternoon, everybody. I'm recognising some names that I've seen in other sessions today, and it's good to see you back at this final session of the Festival of Computing, a unique collaboration between Plymouth University and Computing at School. This session is an introduction to EdTech Demonstrator schools, and we've also got a taster webinar on how to run computer science on a Chromebook. My name's Suzanne Cray, if you haven't met me already today, and I'm one of the outreach managers for Computing at School, covering the Southwest region. And I'll be your host for this session. Today, I'm accompanied by Thomas, a student ambassador, who's moderating the session and monitoring the question window. We're joined today by Claire Buckler from Devonport High School for Boys and EdTech Demonstrator School. And I'll tell you more about Claire in a minute. First of all, just a couple of things to say. In terms of housekeeping during the session, please use the chat window, usually on the right-hand side of your screen, to ask questions. You might need to click on the chat icon to open it. Our student ambassador will be making a note of the questions posed there, and these will be answered if time allows at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, all attendees are in listen-only mode, and please do ensure that your microphone is switched off throughout the presentation. A copy of the slides will be available to download from the CAS website, and you'll get a link at the end of today, which will tell you how to access those. And finally, the hashtag for this event is hashtag CASPLIM21, which I'll pop in the chat afterwards as well. And please do tweet about the sessions you've attended through the day, either through this session or afterwards, because it's great to hear your thoughts. So our speaker today is Claire from the Devonport High School for Boys. Claire has taught ICT and computer science for 16 years and now works at DHSB, driving the whole school digital skills initiative. Claire is keen to showcase educational technology, in particular how it can be used to lessen workload. Claire is a CPD facilitator for the NCCE and STEM, a Raspberry Pi and Google educator, and a board member for CAS, and is part of the team working on the EdTech Demonstrator initiative. So without further ado, Claire, I will hand over to you, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Suzanne. So very warm welcome to my office at DHSB. Now, I just want to let you know that it is going to be the end of lunch here shortly, so hopefully the background noise won't be too much for you. So what we're going to look at, really quick overview, I want to talk a little bit about the EdTech Demonstrator initiative and what it could offer you for free in your settings. And then we're going to have a look at a taster webinar. Now, this is a webinar that I have run quite a few times already. It's been quite popular. And we're going to look at Google tools, basically how we use those in the department to run our computer science curriculum. And then as a little bit on the end of this, actually how you can effectively use Chromebooks in the classroom to teach programming, which is one of the things that, or one of the questions that I get asked the most with Chromebooks, but how do you program? So we're going to go through that. As Suzanne said, if you post any questions in the chat, hopefully we'll have time at the end to go through those. So before we start, I just want to say about the computer science on Chromebook. I'm not suggesting in any way that this is the best way to do it. What I am giving you is a way that we've done it successfully at DHSB, and it's something that we've worked on with our Google tools over several years. So it's something that we think is working really well at the moment, and we're actually really happy with it. Okay, so the EdTech Demonstrator program was actually brought to life in 2019, and the idea was to boost peer-to-peer support on the effective use of technology. Now that kind of morphed at the end of 2019 and 2020 to help schools and colleges provide education remotely, obviously due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What we do offer though is professional development. Whilst we have initially focused on getting everybody to get to one place with their remote learning, there are lots of things that we can offer, and that includes advice, guidance and training, which we do through webinars, recorded content, peer-to-peer discussions. We can look at the use of online learning platforms, digital safety. We've done supporting pupils with SEND and how to promote pupil and teacher wellbeing during remote teaching. So who is the programme aimed or targeted at? Well, to any schools and colleges that like to develop their approach to remote learning, or moving forward into next year, how to improve their educational technology offer that they have across the school. And I like to think of that as well as how they can lessen workload for teachers, how they can improve learner outcomes, engagement and well-being. The demonstrated schools, currently there's 50 of us. We are schools that have demonstrated significant experience and expertise in the use of educational technology to promote the advancement of approaches to teaching and learning. So we are a Google school, we are a Google reference school, and we have been for the last 7 years. We've got a lot of experience in that, and we are also a school striving to be serverless. So I'm going to talk you a little bit through our journey as we go through the presentation. So the support really is tailored to your school. Some schools we've just done some basic training with, so I've offered whole school training. I've done training for certain sets of teachers, just getting them set up. And with other schools, we have reviewed their current online offer and just given them some tips and tricks about how they can streamline that. A lot of schools rush to put remote learning in place and actually repeating lots of things. So we've kind of helped them streamline that along the way. Anyone that takes up our program is supported will have its own needs. So it would be the role of myself or the people in my team to work out the support that you might need in the context of your setting. And that currently is looking at about a half a term's work. But the scheme has just been given the go-ahead by the DFE for the next year. So we're looking at that could actually run with some schools for a significant amount of time. The programme is funded, like I said, until the end of March. Well, currently 2021, but it looks like it's going to move forward into next year. So that should be the academic year. How do we link into other DFE initiatives? Well, the EdTech Demonstrator programme complements things like the adoption of cloud platforms. So you can actually get free support for people to come in and set you up on a Google platform, for example, or an Office 365 one. Everything we do as well, we always point in the direction of other initiatives like Oak Academy and the BBC Bite-Size online curriculum. So the last question there says, if everyone's returning to school, is there any point applying? Well, yes, because we exist to develop your capability to harness the power of online platforms, okay? So that any kind of periods of closure in the future or just becoming more competent and more streamlined, we can help with. So that's the EdTech Demonstrator programme. For further details, you can get in touch with edtechdemo@dhsb.org, or later on I will share the initiative website. Okay, so before we have a look at computer science, it's interesting to note where we are as a school. So we started really our journey with EdTech, I suppose, in 2013, when we introduced digital leaders across the school. It's a huge initiative now. Switched over to Google from a traditional VLE frog in 2014. In 2015, we were the first school in the Southwest to be a flagship school for Google. And that was mainly because the amount of our staff that had been trained as level 1 or 2 educators, and the fact that we'd moved everything over to Google as a platform. And that includes everything from our websites, all of our parental information all goes out via Google shared drives. In 2015, our library space was turned into a Learning Commons, which is a digital space. We still have some books, but we have a really fluid space. We replaced all of our iPads and legacy kind of devices with Chromebooks. My role was created, that's Director of the Learning Commons, so I oversee all of the digital initiatives here at DHSB. In 2019, we rolled out one-to-one Chromebook scheme for our years 7, 8 and 9. The uptake for that is a parental scheme, so the parents actually pay for that, but it's been phenomenal with, I think it's around 90% of our Key Stage 3 students now having their own Chromebook, and it's high in 10 and 11, I think it's over 80%. Sixth form, we operate a BYOD. Now, having a one-to-one Chromebook scheme obviously has meant that the move to online learning for us was relatively straightforward and smooth. So where we're at this year, we've just moved from Sims, so we've gone to a cloud-based cloud-based MIS system. Just about to go live with that in a couple of weeks. So we're really quite excited about that. And we actually got rid of our last legacy PC suite, and now we have all of our IT suites are flexible spaces with Chromebooks. And actually we are moving everything now. So everything that we do have a PC, so we've got a suite in DT, but we've actually moved them over to Neverware. So we're not actually running any Windows machines or software for students currently in the school. And looking forward, the only things really that we need to find alternatives to, or things that we're hosting on servers, are our cashless catering system and currently our printers. But we hope to look at solutions for those moving forward. Okay, so cloud-based computer science program. Now we're all, I know, computer science teachers or have experience with computer science. So I hope that, you know, I'm not going to patronize anyone, but I just want to show you how we're using the whole of this to run the whole department. So all of us in the department are educated to level 1 or level 2. The school pay for that qualification. And we use G Suite for everything. So we don't have books for our Key Stage 3 students. Key Stage 4 and 5, we use them for assessment. Obviously, currently at the moment, everyone's at home. So the move online for us was simple because we were already doing it. We're using Google Applied Digital Skills or kicking those off in this year and then aligning them to the Gatsby skills so that for each of our lessons, we can talk about the possible or potential careers and then point them in directions of any digital skills that perhaps we can't fit in the curriculum. And all of the students have this information in a Google site portal, which they, as soon as they log onto a Chromebook, that information comes up for them. Our computer science curriculum currently in year 7 and 8 is an enterprise curriculum. So we mix business and computer science. It has a focus on careers, but it also builds on our school's values of collaboration and creativity, and in particular, nurturing inventive minds and entrepreneurial thinking. As I said earlier, the majority now, it's 80%, it's currently 90% now of students have their own Chromebook, which they bring in for learning. For anyone that doesn't have a Chromebook, all of our departments have their own set. So there is no one at any point that is without a device. For GCSE, we have class suites of Chromebooks, like I said, and for currently they're using Google Colab for their programming projects. We have personal learning checklists, which they have live throughout their GCSE, again, which we host on Google, on Classroom. And A-level, we are running the OCR H446 A-level course, and for the coding on that, we're currently using Repple. Our sixth form student have a BYOD policy anyway, but a lot of them just choose to come and use our Chromebooks. Just a quick benefit there of having everything in the cloud. That's our scheme of work. Everything is linked, so you can go in at the bottom here and click on any lesson, and it takes you through to the resources for that lesson straight away. And obviously we can access that from anywhere, any place, anytime, as long as we have an internet connection. Very quickly on this, because I think this is it's a tried and tested thing. We use Google Forms for the majority of our assessment. That includes regular testing, end of topic tests. We generally use self-marking, so it means that anything we set, we don't have to mark. The Google form will give them instant feedback if we've set it up to be like that. But we also use feedback with impact. So in a Google form, you can actually say if someone gets a question wrong, you can show them why they got it wrong and give them somewhere else to go, which can be differentiated in your students. So I'm going to go through this one quite quickly, but this is one of the therapy that we gave when they came back initially, just to see what they were missing. And with Google Forms, we can quickly see what each student has responded to, obviously, but what we've got now in the quiz side is frequently missed questions. So that's a really powerful way for us to come back and understand very quickly what aspects of the curriculum our students are missing. One thing that I did want to point out, which has been really successful for us over the last couple of years, is the idea of electronic exercise books. So we knew that there was a need to have tracking, but not necessarily work that you were assessing, but just looking at students' work as it progressed through the year or through a project. We wanted to move to a paper-free department. We wanted support for our dyslexic students. So those might have an overlay, for example, in class, but we could use that with coloured Google Slides. Google now has a plagiarism checker built in. So for those extended projects, it's been fantastic. And we put everything through Google Classroom. So all of the students have one place in which to get everything. So the electronic exercise book, you can see there is one of our Chromebook suites. All of those students there with their own Chromebook. So what we did is we set up some Google Slides and we made them look like a textbook because the students seem to really like that. And what we've got effectively is just an empty book. So this is a book that we may choose to track just general progress in class, and we'll have a look at these in more detail, but we gave everyone in the year a different colour. And then within the book, we set them up as templates. So in the layout, the students can add new pages to their workbook, which include graph paper, squared paper, a planning page. We've also got some template pages that they could use that we put in for searching or for research. We'd have tips in as well. That's an example of a graph and the squares. They were really, really useful. So what we would do is set them up as an assignment at the beginning of the project. Don't get them to hand them in because, of course, you could just see the work live, and then we could check in periodically to see what the student had been working on and what they've been doing. It was so good that what we've actually moved to now for our Key Stage 3 is creating electronic workbooks, which have got the projects in. So this means that for anyone teaching, this is Year 8 Enterprise's serial project that they do, all of the students get the same workbook. We assign it as an assignment, like I said, and then they get the same experience. And as teachers, what we can do is assess these using speaker, so voice notes. So quite a few teachers in our department like to have the notation on so they can talk, but it actually writes comments underneath the Google slide for the students, and then the students can respond. I can see, so on the slide there, that you can see that I've got Moat installed, so I tend to leave voice notes. And what was really interesting about that, as soon as you started doing it, the students were like, well, can I leave a voice note so I can explain what I've done? I'm like, yeah, that's fantastic. So that's our electronic workbooks, which we use across the whole of the curriculum. The GCSE, we tend to have a blank one, and then they put their work in as they go. And the Key Stage 3 that are doing specific project-based ones, we have it all laid out like this. Now, we don't have any non-specialists, but if you did, and in my previous role, I had 6 non-specialists, this is a fantastic way of ensuring all of your students get the same experience. So assessment and feedback in Google quickly, because I want to move on to the coding and computer science bit. We use Rubrics. So Google has Rubrics, which we can share across all our classrooms, which means we can mark super quick. All students get the same marking feedback. It means we can tie it up for GCSE and A-level to the specification. So A-level 12-mark question, for example, it's really easy to click and give them some feedback really quickly. We talked about Google Forms, which we use to gauge our understanding, personal learning checklists. In some classes for GCSE, we have those set as an assignment. Again, we can just pop into each class and see where the student thinks they're at any one point. And we use voice marking. This is just another example of one of the exercise books. And if you see at the bottom, we've got the teacher feedback and the student response. Mr. Scott likes to type his notes out, as in with a voice tool. I use Moat, but you can just talk to your laptop and it will mark for you. And the best thing about these books we found as well is that on this one, as one of our students had a few misconceptions, so we just embedded a YouTube video for him on his specific workbook. So we don't mark this it's not a massive big deal. We just check to see what they're up to, and it might be that we can just add extra notes in for individual students, and it's worked really well. Very quickly, Jamboards in our classroom. So we use it. It's, if you don't know, it's part of the Google offer. It's free. It's an online interactive whiteboard tool, so similar to whiteboard.fi, and you can have it so that you can share one between the class. So you can see there that I was asking my students what they could tell me about what were we doing, 1.6, so security. And then underneath, this is a class where I'd asked a question about ethics, and they had to add post-it notes to some that they were for pro, against, and then where they were in the middle. And the great thing about that is I can pop onto Classroom and just really quickly see who's engaged with the task straight away. So obviously anyone with no post-it notes, I can just log them straight away for non-engagement, and that's what we've been doing over this period. We've been looking at, have they engaged with the task, and I can do it without actually clicking on anyone's task by looking at the Classroom overview in Google Assignments. So that's been super handy. Now, I am aware that I'm talking at great speed because it is a taster, so I just want to get this bit in for you guys. So we use Chromebooks. I'm on a Chromebook now. I've got a Pixelbook. I do all of my programming on it. I use Python mainly. I use P5.js as well. Everything I do with the students in Key Stage 3 and 4 is web-based. Everything I demo to Key Stage 5, I do on Repple. It's untrue that they are useless devices that don't do anything. And when I first started at DHSB, and I'd come from a Microsoft school, I was a little bit concerned about this and the idea that we were going to get rid of all of our PCs. But this is what I found, and these are some really useful tips if any of you are currently thinking about the move to Chrome. So everything pretty much post 2019 now in terms of Chromebook has Linux support. So you can turn on a Linux container on your Chromebook so that you have access to Android and Linux apps. There's a list of supported Chromebooks in the slides, but like I say, it's pretty much anything post 2019. Really, now all you need to do is go into your settings and turn Linux on. And what that does is it enables you to have Linux apps. So you can have things like GIMP, which is like Photoshop. You can have Kden Live, which is video editing. I'll be honest with you, I use WeVideo. Most of the things I use are web apps. There's Master PDF, Audacity for audio editing, and Inkscape. However, all of those things can be replicated with web apps, which is what we use for Key Stage 3. So Beautiful audio editor, or Sodaphonic for those audio files, WeVideo for video editing. We use Canva for any graphic design thing, which is a phenomenal tool. And we also use Photopea, which I think someone told me is actually called Photopea, but it's a fantastic web tool. But Chromebooks do have that option. Now, this is only, though, possible with one-to-one Chromebooks. If you use multi-user, the container that Linux sits in is only per user. So we've actually got 10 Chromebooks which are set up with Linux on, and students log into that computer if they want to use some of the Linux apps. And they do that because you can actually install things like VS Code. So I have VS Code on my Chromebook. You can install it using a .deb file. So you go onto the website as if you have a Linux machine, you drag it into your Linux folder, and it will just auto install for you or your students. My sixth form, the majority of my sixth form actually on their BYOD have a Chromebook, and all of them have VS Code installed. In terms of Key Stage 3, or if I'm just tinkering, you can install Python idle, super easy on a Chromebook. You turn your Linux support on, and then you've got one line command there. And what's really good is that you can import Pygame and tkinter and everything. So there isn't really anything that you can't do with that with idle. And if you wanted something more powerful, obviously you can install the VS Code. Web-based though, Key Stage 3, we are tailoring off now, Scratch. We're moving towards, we like P5.js, which is a fantastic JavaScript tool which does animation really easy, but we do know that some students still don't have basic programming skills, so we do use Scratch a little bit. We use coding with Chrome occasionally. Again, we're phasing that out because what Google have actually done is introduce something called Google Colab, so Google Collaboratory, and that's what we mainly use now to demonstrate in class. And I'm going to show you Colab. It's fabulous, to be quite honest. So we did use Repple. Repple are moving towards Teams. It's paid for. So I still have one team with Repple that has my sixth form in. But that's only because we have a small class of 10. Google Colab allows you to write and execute code in your browser. And what you can do is you can set up a template in your Colab. So here's an example here. This is using the Craig and Dave time resources. And you can assign that one per student via Google Classroom. So I have pretty much exactly the same as I would in Repple, but it's all sat within Google Classroom. So you can see here, I've assigned this to every student. When they hand those in, I can just click on their Colab file and click play, and I can instantly see their work. They don't have to screenshot it. And they can also add in text notes in there and comments as usual. Colab allows write to file. It allows SQL. Okay, so you can do SQLite 3. It also has just come out with a Turtle library, so you can use Google Turtle, Python Turtle within the Colab window, which has just been fabulous for us. So the majority of our Key Stage 3 and 4 now is done by Colab, and again in Google Classroom, so everything is there for them. This slide here is just showing my Repple menu. So for sixth form, everything that I demonstrate is in Repple. You can see there that all of the A-level can be taught that way. It has TK Inter, which is what we use to show them how to do a GUI, and it has Pygame support as well. And then finally, because I think that's my half an hour, and I do appreciate I went through that at the speed of light. So this is the current Key Stage 3 curriculum, and we are very happy with our offer at DHSB that we're offering all of that via a Chromebook. We do have a huge love of digital skills here though, so the majority of departments all buy into digital skills, so lots of things like graphing, for example, will be taught in maths departments and bits and pieces. There's a couple of things there I just wanted to recommend. You're probably all aware, but the NCC do a fabulous scheme of work. We mainly use that at Key Stage 3 and 4. They're all in there, all of the resources ready to go. In terms of doing logic diagrams, again, cloud-based, we use logic.ly. It's a fabulous scheme of learning for Key Stage 3 about machine learning. The link for it is there, and I touched briefly on Google's applied digital skills. So these are sets of lessons that Google have put together, and they tie in really well with careers as well. But it also means that we can signpost students some of the digital skills that we might not have time to deliver in a very busy curriculum. And lots of our students, we can put this through Google Classroom so we can see who's doing extra work, should they choose to do that. So everything I think will be emailed out today from Suzanne, and I think that's it really from me. If there are any questions?
If there are any questions, I'll pick up on them and let you know.
Okay, well, that's pretty much it from me.
Thank you, Claire. I was really interested in the electronic exercise books and electronic workbooks and how well the students have engaged with those. I just wonder if you wanted to elaborate, or you'd be able to elaborate on that a little more. But you did touch on them responding to feedback on those as well. Just interested in hearing about that.
Yeah, so the electronic exercise book. Basically, we just didn't want to use paper anymore, and also we're always trying to find ways, aren't we, to kind of sneak and cheat with marking a little bit so it's easy. So the idea with them is that we have one book that students would be able to put the work that we're doing currently, and it's the work that we're not saying we're formally marking, but we want to have a look, don't we, just to see what the progression's been like. And what we can do is to sign it via Google Classroom. The students don't hand it in as such, because we don't need them to, because we can just go in and see the work, and we're able to add voice comments, which is what I do. I use Mote. My co-worker Paul likes to use the voice to text tool, and then the students can respond to that either using a voice to text tool, which they like because it's no trouble, or they just listen to what I've said and they might adjust their work in those. And they were so popular and the students enjoyed them that we now have all of our project work, which is Key Stage 3, in a exercise book effectively that we've written for them. So it's got, this is what you're doing, and they can follow through the workbook as we go through the lesson. So for every sort of teacher slide where I'm talking, they will have one in their workbook, and they can take notes or they can put stuff in. And when we look at those, we can add in, so say GCSE, for example, I quite often add in a Craig and Dave video if a student's misunderstood something, or if you take and work on forms and you can see there's a common misconception across the class, then you can add that video. Now there is an extension that allows you to add a slide across all the workbooks in an assignment. I just can't remember what it is now. So if I let you know, Suzanne, maybe you could let anyone that's interested know what that extension was as well.
Claire, we just have a few questions here from Grace, who's asking about a couple of things. Just thought I'd mention that.
Okay. Do I need to? All right. Sorry.
Grace says, where would be a good starting point, as my school is currently transferring from Microsoft to Google? And she goes on to say that it's perfectly timed session, and those are the questions essentially.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. If you go onto the EdTech Demonstrator, the link is on the website at the moment. You can fill in a form. This is all free. And you can actually specify which school you want to talk to. And if you choose Devonport High School for Boys, we have a member of staff here, Nick, who has been here. I've only been here for a couple of years. I'm relatively new, but he's seen the whole transition from when we were, we've never been a full Microsoft school, but we have been a hybrid. So we have had desktop PCs. The students used to log in, and we had Active Directory, and we use Google Classroom on top of that. And now we've just moved everything away, and he's overseen every department to move to that. And we can also get you in touch with specific departments. DT is one, quite a few people are like, oh no, you can't possibly do it, but our DT department have moved on to Onshape. We do have a couple of Windows PCs knocking around for specific things that we haven't quite replaced yet. But if you wanted to fill in that form and put Devonport High School for Boys, we would be able to help you with that. If not, there are Google, if you just search for transition from Microsoft, Google do their own help guides, which specifically take you from what Microsoft looked like and what Google's environment looks like. So they would be helpful as well.
Okay. We also have another comment here from, excuse me if I can't pronounce the username correctly, or their name, Sashrunda, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologise.
It's fine.
She says that the school migrated over to Google in September last year, being a Google certified educator and trainer and leading the implementation. She was able to support the staff and the students and parents now are all confident, and starting by training teachers first was available from as 24/7 for everyone. And that was a comment from her. Yeah.
It is worth noting that particularly with Google and Office, if you are a Office 365 school as well, that the help that these, the companies themselves are providing, which is free as well. So we're one scheme, obviously we're funded by the DfE, but if you just wanted to go out and self-learn and grab great documentation that's already been written, then Google itself is a great place to start for that as well.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll probably start to wrap up for now, because it doesn't look like there's any more questions coming through at the moment, Claire, but we will be sharing the slides after today anyway, so and I'm sure if there's any more questions you can get in touch. So thank you very much, Claire, for your presentation today and your taster webinar. It's really, really interesting and useful, and gives us a bit of an insight of the support offered by EdTech Demonstrator schools. So thank you. And I want to say thank you also to Thomas for his support during this session as well.